All right, good morning and welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. I don't care what anybody tells you. I am, in fact, the most objective libertarian. I know because I said so. And I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right, folks, I want you to remember, this show does not run on freedom fumes alone. So if you're watching me on Rumble, smash that green $sign during the show to drop a Rumble rant. It's kind of like tossing me a cold one. Helps keep the vibes high and the mics on. If you want to go all in, click that subscribe button for $5 a month because your support helps me fight the good fight. All right, let's get into it. Coming up the next few days, I'm going to have some interviews. So I want to kind of tell you about that. So tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, and Thursday morning. I got 4 interviews coming. Now, you might remember last week, I kind of fumbled one. What was it, Thursday? I think it was Thursday I was supposed to have one. And then I got that all messed up. And so I reached out to that person and got them scheduled for, I think that's the person that I scheduled for this coming Thursday. So anyway, we've got 4 interviews coming up. So look forward to that. I will be interviewing libertarian candidates. We have some elections coming up here on November 4th. So we're going to try to get them a little bit of media that they can work with and, just help introduce them to perhaps some new voters. So that'll be fun. Look forward to that. All right, today we are going to be talking about Randy Fine again. Now, if you watch this show, you know that Randy Fine is not exactly my favorite Congress member. In fact, he might be my least favorite Congress member. But I try to be objective, and he recently came out with a new bill. This it's regarding the dual loyalty issues that we've been talking about. Not we, but like that you've been hearing about here and there. So let me put this up on the screen here. Let me show you what he said. Where is it here? No, we want to go here. There we go. And bam. All right. Oop, that's not it. That's the wrong one. Hold on. Why is that not showing up? Okay. Let's get my act together and we'll get the correct one here. So let's go. Give me just a second and I will have it up on the screen. There we go. All right. How about that? He says, time to find out where loyalties are. My loyalty is to America, as it should be for every member of Congress. Well, all right. I actually don't disagree with anything that this may be the first tweet from Congressman Randy Fine that I have zero disagreement with. I don't disagree with anything here, right? Your loyalty, if you're in Congress, should be to America. Every single member, when push comes to shove, America, any other country, it should be America. End of story. Right there, right off the bat. So I completely agree. Now, he's quoting a Breitbart article that says exclusive, Randy Fine's disqualifying Dual Loyalty Act bans foreign citizens from serving in Congress. So let me put that up on the screen for you guys. And let's see. There we go. All right. So here we go. And I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can. There we go. Because Randy Fine is not big enough. So I'll make him a little bit bigger on the screen there for you. Wah, wah. All right. Representative Randy Fine believes elected officials should be America first, and he has a new bill putting his money where his mouth is. The freshman congressman introduced the disqualifying Dual Loyalty Act of 2025 on Friday to prohibit the election of any person holding foreign citizenship, Breitbart News learned ahead of the bill's filing. The short, straightforward bill states simply that, quote, no person, without regard to whether that person is a United States national, may be elected to the office of representative or senator if that person is a national of any country other than the United States. All right. And then it's quoting him, I think it's fair argument to make that you can only swear allegiance to one country, and if you're in Congress, that allegiance should be to America. Fine's legislation would not only apply to future candidates, but would also require any current member of Congress holding dual citizenship to renounce foreign citizenship if seeking re-election. People who may have been dual citizenship can choose to give it up, he said. It's not that if you've ever been a dual citizen, you are prohibited from ever serving. It's just you can't be one moving forward. Okay, no problems there. Sounds good, right? Like if you once upon a time were a citizen of another country, then you move to America, you realize, wow, America's awesome. I want to be an American, and you renounce your old citizenship, and then you become a citizen of the United States. That's awesome. I agree. You should be permitted to run for Congress. I'm okay with that. Fine said he did not look to target any particular member of Congress. I don't think anybody knows how many dual citizens serve in Congress, he said, but wants to push back against anti-Semitic accusations that pro-Israel, especially Jewish politicians, possess dual loyalties. I got tired of the anti-Semites going after people like me because we're Jewish and saying because we're Jewish, we must be dual citizens, he told Breitbart News. Now, let's be clear about this. Okay, he says because we're Jewish, we must be dual citizens. That's not the reason why. The reason why people question your loyalty is because of the bills that you pass that favor generally Israel. Like, it's generally not any other country. So you could make the argument, say, well, they're picking on the Jewish people, but then you really can't, because we would have to identify all of the Jewish members, and then we would say, all right, which ones are outwardly and unabashedly supporting all this legislation that favors in some way Israel. That includes, more specifically, anything about money. So if we're sending money to Israel and you're voting for it, people are like, man, I don't know, maybe your loyalties aren't with America, since we have our own economic problems here to deal with, and you're voting to send a country more money, right? A first world country. We're not exactly talking about sending money to like Haiti, a country that's poor and despotic, effectively, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sending money to a very first world country. Well, a lot of Americans are like, you know what? It'd be nice if we could keep our own money and work on our own problems here. We are not so flush with cash that we can just say, you know what? We can give money to anybody. Right? That's not where we are. So when people are questioning you and your loyalty, it has nothing to do with whether or not you're Jewish. It has everything to do with how you're doing your job. People want Congress members to focus on Americans. It's pretty simple. What's going on? So I was like, all right, fine. I'll match you and raise you one. You can't serve if you are one, because I'm not. And I don't know that any of the Jewish members are. I think this is some fictionalized concern that people have, and let's call it out. Let's deal with it. He might be right. There might not be a single member of Congress that has dual citizenship, right? There might not be. I don't know. I think I heard there was one that had like Canadian or something. I don't know. The firebrand congressman is unconcerned with any pushback. I learned a long time ago, there's never a bill that doesn't have pushback. I'm certain there will be. Well, as long as I'm on the air, there will probably be pushback on bills. Doesn't matter who you are. I'm certain that members who happen to be dual citizens won't like the bill, adding, I don't know who they are. Fine said he would be open to some kind of similar law for certain classes of federal employees. Should you be able to work, for example, at the CIA if you're a dual citizen of a country that may not like us very much? He asked. Look, let's focus on this bill to start, but I don't think that's a bad idea. Man, Is what is is there something wrong with the moon lately? Like now there's like 2 times that I'm agreeing with Randy Fine. Like, yes, if you work at a federal agency like the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, whatever, no, you should not be a dual citizen at all. Because, I mean, you're literally engaging in some variant of law enforcement or intel. We definitely need to know that you're America first. We don't want you slipping some trade secrets, if you will, to our enemies because you've got dual loyalty. Look, I watched 24. I know how it works. Anyway, let's see here. As he focuses on his bill, Fine intends to push to get the legislation passed. Look, it's a big deal, Fine said. A lot of people talk about it all the time. America first, dual citizen. I've been accused of it for years, but I figured I would shut up the anti-Semites by saying, fine, challenge accepted. Now shut up and let's get the bill passed. Oh, Randy, he's so funny. So again, I dispute this idea that people are anti-Semitic, right? Like that's what he falls back upon. He's like, oh, you criticize me, you must be an anti-Semite, right? It's very lazy. And in as much as the firebrand doesn't care about pushback on bills, we shouldn't be concerned with pushback on, oh, you must be an anti-Semite. No, I just want to make sure that when you are voting for things, you are starting with America's interest first. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no way you can defend America first by giving somebody else money. Sorry, that's off the table. We don't have it. Now, if we get to a point where we're just flushed with cash, we just got so much money. When I say we, I mean like America has so much money. Like everybody is just wealthy. There's no poverty. America's bank, reserves, if you will, are just flush with cash. We're trying to figure out how to spend it because we don't know what to do with it. Yeah, okay, we can have a conversation then. At that point, we could talk about whether we want to give money to Haiti, China, Israel, any country in Europe, whatever. Right? We could have a conversation then. But until then, no. No money needs to be going to any other country. Period. Oh, there was a natural disaster? Guess what? If you stop taxing Americans, we will be glad to give money to like the Red Cross and other organizations that assist with those kind of situations. Yeah. Like I don't have a problem giving money. I just want to give money on my own because it's mine. And I think I speak for quite a few Americans who will say the same thing. Now, this bill, if we go over here, so here's the bill, H.R. House Resolution 5817, to prohibit the election to Congress of any person holding foreign citizenship. So at this particular moment, if we go here to the text, it's going to tell you that there's no text. Where is it? Oh, there, go down. It says text has not been received. So we can't review the bill in specific, okay, because I don't know what the language is. However, he's saying to prohibit the election to Congress of any person holding foreign citizenship. He's not referencing this as an amendment. So therefore, I don't believe this is constitutional. Now, I have to be careful because I haven't read it, so I can't. Maybe there's something in there that would change my mind. But just based on what I'm seeing, this is not a constitutional bill. And if we look over here at GovTrack, which they don't have the text either, I noticed something interesting down here. Their current prognosis is 2% chance of being enacted. And I don't know what their, let's see if we click on the details. This bill has a 7% chance of getting past committee, 2% chance of being enacted. Only 11% of bills made it past committee, and only about 2% were enacted. So I guess they're making this presumption just based on how many bills normally get past committee and how many become enacted. Let's see. Factors considered. The bill was introduced in the first year of the Congress. These factors are correlated with either an increased or decreased chance of being enacted. So there's not a lot to work with here. But right now, low chance of being enacted. And if we go to the congressional record here, because I dug deep, folks. I went looking because I was like, if I could just find the text anywhere, just anywhere, because it's in committee. So here's the constitutional authority statement for H.R. 5817, and this comes from the congressional record as of October 24th, 2025. So it just says, Congress has the power to enact this legislation pursuant to the following: Article 1, Section 2, Clause 2. And if we want to know that, I suppose we can look it up real quick. Just so we put it up on the screen. So we'll put that up on the screen. We'll get that. No person, this is the qualifications clause, well, no person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. Okay? So that's our qualifications clause. However, I don't know, like if his bill is amending this clause, well, then that's a different story. It would be constitutional. If his bill does not amend it and just simply adds to it, then I'm going to argue that that it's actually not constitutional. So where am I getting that information from? So let me go over to some images here. Let's go with this one right here. So this one, I'm reading from, where was it here? Give me a second. Give me a second. I gotta find I didn't take that note. I was mostly ready this morning, folks. Mostly. There it is. So this comes from, there we go, U.S. Term Limits, Inc. versus Thornton. And I don't know the year, but here's what it says. It says the power granted to each House of Congress to judge the qualifications of its own members, Article 1, 5, Clause 1, does not include the power to alter or add to the qualifications set forth in the Constitution's text. And then it cites Powell versus McCormick. And in Powell versus McCormick, this is what they said. It says, further analysis of the textual commitment under Article 1, Section 5 has demonstrated that in judging the qualifications of its members, Congress is limited to the standing qualifications prescribed in the Constitution. Respondents concede that Powell met these. So this is just a dispute back in the day on whether a particular person that was elected met the qualifications. Congress basically tried to say, no, you can't be in here because of some other reason. And so it went to court. The Supreme Court ruled, and they said, no, he met the qualifications and he was elected. Thus, there is no need to remand this case to determine whether he was entitled to be seated in the 90th Congress. Therefore, we hold that since Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was duly elected by the voters of the 18th Congressional District of New York and was not ineligible to serve under any provision of the Constitution, the House was without power to exclude him from its membership. So there's two court cases, U.S. Term Limits versus Thornton and Powell versus McCormick. They both ruled that Congress cannot add any more requirements. Now, that just means by legislative process. What they can do is seek to amend the Constitution and then add that amendment into the qualifications clause. But until that happens, my read is that unless Randy Fine's bill is amending the Constitution, then it is not constitutionally valid. Now, what's interesting, and I'm not going to pull this up, Ron DeSantis kind of was weighing in on this because he tweeted out something, and then some people were having some conversation back, and I believe it was in the Term Limits versus Thornton. That's where current Justice, drawing a blank, give me a second, Clarence Thomas, he actually dissented. And he made a point to basically say, well, if, you know, the qualifications clause does not prohibit states from having higher threshold, which I agree, actually. Now, that would have to be overturned because this was in U.S. Term Limits versus Thornton. Basically, what was happening is there were there were some states that said, hey, we want to impose term limits. And it got shot down, basically saying, no, the term limits, the changes that you want to make violate the Constitution. And Clarence Thomas said, well, so long as the requirements are higher threshold than the Constitution, they should be permitted, which I agree. I would agree that if you were to say, like Congress says, hey, you have to be 35 years old, or I'm sorry, 25 years old to be a Congress member. Well, the state of Florida could say, well, in order for you to be a Congress member for our state, we want you to be at least 30. So I would support that, right? I would support Florida's right to be able to make that. I don't know if I would support 30 specifically. I probably actually would. Like if Florida had something on the ballot to say nobody can be a representative either for the House of Representatives or for the Senate who is not at least 30 years old, I would probably support that. But more importantly, I would support Florida's right to make that distinction and say, okay, well, 25 is what Congress is requiring. We're requiring something more. And if Florida said, hey, we want to put in term limits on our representatives, I would support that as well. If they wanted to make additional thresholds, I would at least support their right to have that conversation and potentially do it. It depends on what requirement, whether or not I would actually support it. Because at the end of the day, I believe in what you might call states' rights. I tend to think of it more as state autonomy. So I think that as long as they're not violating the Constitution, and there's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits a state from having a higher threshold. That's my read of that. Now, a while back, I actually reviewed a bill, and it was Thomas Massie's bill. And let me go pull up. I'm not going to show it to you. I'm just going to pull this up and let's see if I can't find it real quick. Because it wasn't too long ago. Because Massie had a disclosure. Where did it go? Why am I not seeing it here? Things never are here when I want them to be here. That's okay. We'll fix it. All right. Where did it go? No, that's not it. Well, it was so Massie has the Dual Loyalty Disclosure Act, and I don't know why they didn't. You know, maybe if I type in disclosure, that would be better. All right, how about that? There it is. So episode 578, I did a bill review, Dual Loyalty Disclosure Act. That was HR 2356. That was Thomas Massie's version, and I reviewed that back about a month ago. And in that one, what he did was he made he introduced legislation that would update our campaign finance laws that just simply say you have to disclose whether or not you're a U.S. citizen. So it's kind of interesting that a month ago he put that out, and then now here we are with Randy Fine, and he has one that says, look, you can't be one at all, which I would be okay with. But I'm just curious, like, why doesn't Randy Fine, why doesn't he just simply support Thomas Massie's bill, which has already been introduced, is constitutionally valid, and just simply says, look, tell the American people, that's it. Just let them know that you're a dual citizen and they can decide. And the American people could decide whether or not we support a dual citizen from, say, Canada, Germany, or Israel. Right? Just as examples. And we might decide, you know what? Right now, we're not interested in dual citizens from Israel, but we're okay with them from Germany. And then in 10 years, we might have a flip-flop. We might say, you know what? We're grumbling at Germany right now. So if you're a dual citizen from Germany, we don't want to vote you into office. So I kind of like that. I like them both, actually. But I will have to say, I guess I kind of prefer Thomas Massie's a little bit more. And the only reason is because I don't really like making a lot of rules. I would rather you just inform the American public and we can take it from there. That's it. Like, I don't mind Randy Fine's, based on what I'm reading. I don't mind the idea that we would prohibit altogether. And since we have to make a constitutional amendment, that means it's a much weightier process. And so therefore, if it were to actually pass, then I would feel like, yes, that's what my fellow countrymen actually want, right? It's not something that you could just, bills get passed in Congress all the time. And, do they really have the support of the American public? Not so much. I mean, they may not have opposition, but they may not have support either. They may be taking advantage of the fact that Americans are unfortunately rather lazy. But if we have to amend the Constitution, well, that becomes a larger conversation. And so now people are going to be talking about it. And so I think we would get a good sense of whether or not that's what the American public actually wants. But I definitely would agree with, at a minimum, the disclosure. So why would Randy Fine not be signing on to that? Well, here's one reason why. Let's put this image up on the screen. So this image is going around, and I don't know where it came from. I've seen a bunch of people post this, and I was not able to find this particular one. But I'm gonna use it anyway, just because it's been going around quite a bit, and presumably my Google foo is not working. So it says Representative Thomas Massie says Congress members should not be dual citizens. Congressman Thomas Massie is being accused of anti-Semitism for stating that members of the U.S. Congress should not be allowed to hold dual citizenship with other countries. So then we get down. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, if you will, kind of like a pretend scroll. There we go. Dual citizens elected to the United States Congress should renounce citizenship in all other countries. I'm going to repeat that real quick. All other countries. Okay? So he's not specifying Israel, nor is he specifying Jewish people. Massie said Monday on X, at a minimum, they should disclose their citizenship in other countries and abstain from votes specifically benefiting those countries. I'm good with that. That is a good minimum. Then it gets down here. Though Massie didn't call out any country by name, he was immediately accused of anti-Semitism by Jewish Florida State Rep Randy Fine. Oh. So when Thomas Massie put it out and just said, look, any country is applicable here, Randy Fine was like, oh, Jew hater. Basically what he said. I mean, yeah, he said he was anti. But here, if that's not convincing, because you know what? I don't really like putting up information that I haven't validated, although I feel confident this probably did happen, just given the widespread use of it on social media, and I haven't seen any notes saying that this is not true or whatever. So, but I dug up this video. So this video comes from a podcast. I'm not terribly familiar with the podcast. It's called the, where is it here? Oh, I don't have that. Give me a second. I will put up I will give you the name of the podcast. The Gabe Greisman. I don't know who that is. So here's this video. Jump on over to Dad TV here. And here's this video of Gabe Greisman. Now, I don't have the very beginning where Gabe is talking to Congressman Fine. But what Gabe does is he kind of leads him. He's like, so, yeah, what about Thomas Massie, who's not very friendly to Jewish people? So he kind of sets up the stage by saying that, Thomas Massie is unfriendly to Jewish people, which I would disagree with, but that's what was said. So here is how Randy Fine responded.
Well, the only one I know who's a real problem is Thomas Massie, and I don't think we're going to get along very well. I've called him an embarrassment to the Republican Party publicly. I don't expect that will change. The good news is what Jews have known about Thomas Massie, I think all Republicans know about Thomas Massie now. I mean, President Trump's not a fan, and I don't think the caucus is a fan. So he's the one that I know is really problematic. Beyond that, I guess I'll find out. But look, I think part of being a fighter for Jews is to not only call it out when the other side does it, but to call it out when your own side does it.
Oh, well, all right. So he didn't actually say it in that clip, but it's pretty clear exactly what he means. He fully believes that Thomas Massie is an anti-Semite. Why is that? Because right now we have married this idea of if you don't support me with money or whatever I ask, then you must be against me. And I hate using the terms like woke right, woke left, right? But they would be applicable here. if we're going to use them, they would be applicable. Because basically the right now, they're doing the same thing with identity politics that the left has done. And Randy Fine himself is doing it as well. He is saying, because the question we should ask him, and if I could ever get him on the show, besides being one heck of a show, I would ask him, I would say, when could somebody criticize a Jewish person or support for Israel without being an anti-Semite? And that's a question that we could. I've asked people on the left. They would say, "Oh, you criticize a black person, you must be racist." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. What criticism is acceptable? When can I criticize? When can I make a joke about a black person and not be racist?" And the same goes for Asians. The same goes for the disabled, for Jewish people, any group of any kind that is ever considered either a minority or a group that gets picked on by the majority or is unfairly treated. The biggest question we should be asking is, when can we lob some criticism, and when can I even make a joke without being considered an ist or some sort of phobic? That's the big question, and it's never answered. And people don't have that answer. However, and I'm not going to pull it up because I don't have it ready, but if you go back to, I think it's the Other America speech in 1967 by Dr. MLK, he actually does. He actually, in that speech, tells you that you can criticize the black community for things and not be racist. Because he spells it out, and he says, it's racist to say it, to think this way. It is not racist to think this way. And more specifically, he's pointing at, if you say like a group of people are culturally backward, that's not necessarily racist, particularly if it's due to environmental factors. So like if you say, hey, this group of people, they're not very well educated, and so therefore they're backwards. Well, he would, according to Dr. King, he would have said that's not racist. But if you said this group of people, well, they're backward because it's in their DNA, well, that's a different story. Then he would say, yeah, that's racist. But after King, I've never heard anybody lay it out like that, because we get involved into identity politics and we use that as a cudgel to fight off other people, and we use it as a shield to shield our own selves from criticism or from mockery. And I say that needs to go. So the reason I think that he dislikes Thomas Massie, the reason I believe is because Randy Fine, I keep wanting to call him Senator, Congressman Fine, he is engaging in identity politics with his Jewish identity. At the end of the day, nobody really cares that he's Jewish. I don't care. I have criticized him for things that he says and does. I criticized him for berating people that were coming in to speak when he was a state representative. There was a video where he was like, come on, bring your terrorist rag. Come on, get it over with. And I'm like, dude, that's pretty unbecoming. Even if the people disagree with you, even if they hate you, you are an elected official. You should act like one. And you should recognize that, yes, that means sometimes people are going to come in and they're going to gripe at you. And maybe their gripes are going to have legitimate complaint, or, they're going to be a legitimate gripe. Maybe they won't be. But that's the job you signed up for. I've criticized my own local city council for that very thing. There's video footage of me going in and telling them, hey, knock it off. Allow people to speak. And if they drop a profanity, be an adult. Now, if somebody's running off the mouth and they're just F this, F that, F this, then sure, maybe they need to be removed, right? Maybe that's a little too much. But if somebody comes in and they're just in their rawest form, and they drop a profanity, get over it. Right? So that's what I told my own city council. So I have, in my city council, I don't think they have any Jews, but we have one, I think one of them is Palestinian, but we have some white folk, we have some black folk, we have at least one guy I think he's of Palestinian heritage, not a Palestinian, but his heritage if you go back. And I criticized all of them. And so I criticize Randy Fine for the same thing. Knock it off. Act better. Act like the person that you should be in the position that you are in. Dignify it. I've also criticized other members. Black, white, doesn't matter. I don't care. So any insult from somebody like Randy Fine that says, hey, you're a this or a that, you're an ist, you're a phobic, whatever, they fall flat here because I've criticized way too many people for that to actually even make sense, even in the slightest. Now, what should happen? Well, number one, once the bill comes out, we can read it. Once the text comes out, normally what happens is the bill gets introduced. Sometimes the Congress member or the senator will put it on their Senate or on their Congress page, right? Their personal Congress page. Sometimes they'll put it out there as a press release and they'll be like, hey, I've introduced this bill, and they'll actually link to the actual text, and so that you can read it. Sometimes they just submit it to Congress, and then immediately what happens is it goes to committee. The committee reviews it. They do their thing. And then if it makes it out of committee, then it gets voted on. Okay? So right now it's in committee. I tried to find any shred of anything that would show me the language currently. I could not find it. But just based on everything that I'm reading, it sounds like it's a standard legislative bill that would just simply prohibit, which in that case, I would say it is not constitutional. So therefore, it is not going to go anywhere. Now, maybe he did it this way on purpose because, let's be honest, Randy Fine is not a dumb man. Okay? He's not. He's a smart guy. He knows how Congress works. So, and he knows whether or not this bill would likely pass constitutional muster. So, one theory that we could say is he's doing this way on purpose, knowing that the bill is not going to pass, and then he can say, hey, look, I tried to get this bill to go through, and he could either say it just didn't make it, or he could go and say, hey, these people, whoever these people are, those in committee, they didn't get it out of committee. It's all their fault. They're anti-Semites. Blame them. We've got anti-Semitic problem in Congress. Or if it does get out of committee and it doesn't pass Congress, it doesn't pass the vote, then he might be able to make that claim about his fellow congressmen. Who knows? I will be generous because I like the bill. I will be generous and give him the benefit of the doubt that it's an honest attempt until I see otherwise. And I don't like the man, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for now. I won't give him the benefit of the doubt, though, on his sincerity of the bill. I'm only giving him the benefit of the doubt on putting the bill forward, like it's an honest attempt, okay? But do I think he really believes it? I kind of don't, because why hasn't he signed on to Thomas Massie's bill? And why would he call him an anti-Semite for literally presenting effectively the same bill that he himself is now introducing, right? So if Thomas Massie was an anti-Semite, then does that mean he's a self-hating Jew? I don't know, but it's worth the conversation. But I'm gonna do my best to give him the benefit of the doubt until we see the bill, right? I don't want to make too much speculation about it, and see what it says. Then from there we can have a conversation and we can start speculating on his motives. But like, I'm going to do I'm trying, folks. I'm trying. I really dislike this man. And it's just because I think he's a foul person. So again, it has nothing to do with him being Jewish. He could be just a straight, regular, boring old white guy saying the same things, doing the same things. And I would think you are a terrible, vile person. He could be a black person. And I would say you are a terrible, vile person. It doesn't matter. Tall, short, fat like he is, skinny, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what heritage he has. If he engaged in the same behaviors, whatever heritage, I would say you are a disgusting, vile person. Period. That's what I would say. And that's my right to say it as an American. First Amendment. I can criticize my leaders all the time. Any day, all day, twice on Sunday. All right, folks. That's pretty much it. Let's get to the comments here and let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see here. Yes, my VA lady points out, do me a solid, smash that thumbs up button on the way in, and don't forget to share the live stream. Make sure to subscribe/follow and spank that bell so that you always know when Liberty Dad is going live. That bell, where's that bell? I got a bell. I got a bell right here. See? If you hit that bell, you will know when I'm going live. Let's see, what else we got? Yes, Randy not so fine stands with Israel. Massie stands for his state, USA, and the Constitution. I stand grandly with Massie. Same here. There is no doubt in my mind where Massie's loyalties lie. They lie with the United States, with the state of Kentucky, and most importantly, with the Constitution. Because as I've said before, the Constitution should be the bare minimum. Now, if you want to have stricter limitations on government, I'm all for it. And many of my libertarian peers do. My anarchist peers definitely do. Let's see, what else we got? Joe says, I don't know if my parents are still citizens of the country they were born in, but I don't think they have to reject that to be loyal to the USA. They did choose to come here, unlike most USA citizens. That's true, and that's fair. And I don't think that you necessarily have to renounce your citizenship from another country to be here. I will say that if you want to be a member of Congress, because you are literally passing legislation and governing the whole country. And so in that particular case, I would say it's important to know that your loyalties are 100% United States, because we're literally giving you power to rule over people, to legislate, to potentially make laws that could punish people. So with that in mind, I would say, yes, I want your loyalties to be 100% United States. Let's see, what else? Yeah, here. Agree that Randy's actions come off as anti-USA, pro-Israel. See, that's the problem. It's his actions. Right? And I've talked about it before. You can go back and you can look at his own words, where it's like, dude, you just keep talking about Israel this and Jewish that. And it's like, what about, like, I can't recall the last time I've seen him talk about my constituents, him being me, but my constituents in the 6th, I think he's the 6th district, the 6th district have been emailing me and telling me I've got to pass this legislation. So I have submitted this, I have introduced this legislation for that reason. I don't see it, right? I've seen Thomas Massie talk about his constituents. I've seen Justin Amash, another libertarian. I've seen actual town halls of him when he was in office. He would have town halls for his constituents to come in and either gripe or ask him questions, get clarity, whatever, right? That to me is what I want to see. I want to see some sort of something that says I am paying attention to my constituents or to my state if you're a senator. That's what I want to see, and I don't really see that out of Randy Fine. So Randy, if you're watching, probably not, but if you are watching, you could totally get me to at least acknowledge something if you were just to start not being a jerk to your constituents and actually talk about them. Go have a town hall and say, I want my constituents to come here and talk to me. And if they gripe at you, they gripe at you. If they praise you, they praise you. Right? Like, I'm not his constituent. But if he held a town hall and he had a bunch of people show up and they just said, I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. I think you're doing great. Keep up the hard work. All right. That's what the constituents said. You know, I would have my disagreements, but I would have to acknowledge that his constituents said, hey, you know what? We like what you're doing. And that he would then be coming across as pro-USA. That's simple. Not very hard. And he could still be all aboard pro-Israel. Right? Like, and I would still acknowledge and be like, well, his constituents like it, so whatever. All right, what else we got? Let's see here. So off topic, who's getting on board with Florida to get 60% of voters to vote on DeSantis' amendment to get rid of property taxes? Joe follows up and he says his proposal doesn't get rid of property tax. It only removes it from homestead properties, effectively shifts property tax burden. I'll be voting no on it. I haven't seen it, but I'll have to look at it and maybe I'll do a bill review on it next week. So maybe, Joe, if you're watching still, if you've already got the link handy, maybe you can message me with that link. But if not, that's no big deal. I can find it. So let's see what else we got here. Got a few chats here. I don't believe anything that comes out about Thomas Massie right now. That fact that Trump is backing Fine and Graham means Trump really is not MAGA. That's true. That's true. And to be honest with you, I think I said this on a past episode. I said the reason that Thomas Massie has the support that he does is because he engages with people. And we see if he votes no or yes, he will come out and he will tell us, this is why I voted no, this is why I voted yes. He'll tweet about it, or he'll get on video and talk about it. And then we can watch it. We can be like, I agree or disagree. And I tend to agree with him. So that's why he gets the support. So that's why when people come out and criticize him, I'm like, well, based on all the things I've seen from Thomas Massie, I don't believe it. You got a heavy burden here to prove to me that what you're saying about Massie is true. To go back to the Randy Fine issue, if something negative comes out about Randy Fine, there's a good chance I'll believe it because his actions have kind of put him in that position. It's kind of like what my mama used to tell me. She was like, if you lie to me all the time, and then that one time you're not lying, if the police knock on the door and they're like, Mrs. Cummings, we need to take your son in because he did this thing. She goes, if you tell me you didn't do it, but you're a constant liar, she goes, I'm going to have to believe the police. She goes, but if you don't lie to me and the police, say you did it, she goes, I'll defend you if I can trust you. Right? And look, I can disagree with somebody vehemently even and trust them at the same time. Like, I'm not above the idea of saying I disagree with, somebody like Randy Fine, but man, if he says he did something, he did it. If he says he didn't do something, he didn't. Right? I'm not above being that person, but he's not there yet. Thomas Massie, however, is. Let's see what else we got. Looks like some conversation going on about the tax. So Joe points out, he says, the problem isn't dual citizenship. It's government being too powerful, unconstitutional. There's an argument to be made there. I still fall on the side of I want you to be a citizen only of the United States. And I support that for other countries too. Like it makes sense. If you go to Germany and you can be elected to some office, you should be a German citizen and you should not have citizenship for other countries. But there is an argument to be made here because the truth of the matter is most countries, like many of the European countries, we're not really in conflict with. And really the only sticking point is really money. That's really our big sticking point. We just don't want our money going to other countries. That's it. So if they actually were to stop sending money to other countries, our money, the issue of dual citizenship would more than likely not be a real problem. That's really our big sticking point. We're just like, stop sending money. Let's see, what else we got in here? Keith asks, has Liberty Dad talked about the property tax thing yet? No, not yet, but I'm going to dig into it. I just haven't got there. I mean, I like the idea of no property taxes. If what Joe says is true, that it only is for homesteaded properties and not for other properties, I'll have to think about that one, right? And I'll have to, again, read the whole thing in context and see whether or not I might agree. So I don't know, but I will definitely have to think about it. It's not an off-the-cuff yes for only homesteaded properties, because there would be some implications, because you would be shifting the tax burden potentially. And that could be a real big problem, especially when, like, I know recently there have been some posts out there, you get them every now and then, about, oh no, BlackRock has, they're buying up all our rental properties right out from underneath people that are ready to make a bid. It's not really true, but if you want to help out big corporations amass more properties, then make it harder for people to afford the properties. And right now, like some 80% of rental properties, which are not homesteaded properties, 80% of rental properties are they are under ownership of what you might call the mom and pop real estate investors, having up to somewhere like around 10 properties or less. Okay. And so there could be implications there if that tax burden is shifted from your homestead property to any property that's not homesteaded. Then what you might have is a sharp increase in the taxes that maybe some of these mom and pop places couldn't afford. And so then what they would do is they have one of two choices. They either sharply raise the rent to be able to afford it, or more than likely, because that would require the market tolerating it, more than likely they would have to sell their property to somebody who can afford to pay the rent. The taxes. And who would that be? Perhaps in that particular case, you're going to be talking about these mega investors. So so it's possible that there are some negative implications here. But again, I haven't read the bill. I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff right now. Let's see here. So let's see. I think that's it for the comments today. Thank you guys for joining. Oh, let me check the other socials. Make sure there's none there. None there. Let's see here. Nope, none anywhere else. So we're good, folks. All right, well, that's the show. Hope you found it informative and inspiring. Where's my script? There it is. Hope you found it informative and inspiring. Whether you're watching me live or later, come back and drop me a comment with your thoughts. Did I miss anything? Do I need to offer a correction? Maybe you've got an idea for a bill review. You know, anytime you want to drop a bill, like the bill number is good enough, you know, but at least maybe tell me what it is. But if like you have an idea, you can drop it in the Monday morning bill review show. And you can say, hey, DL, look up bill HR 12345. It's a bill about this, right? You don't have to, I mean, a link would be the best. But if you don't have a link, if you just know some details about it, let me know. If it's a state level bill, you could do that as well. You could say, hey, here's a bill out of Nebraska. Again, 12345. It's about this. That lets me know what it is. And then I can go and dig it up and see if it's something that that I can speak to. So yeah, anytime you can just drop it right in there. You know, you don't have to just necessarily come in and correct me or give me all kind of praise. You can give me ideas too. That'll work. So, but with that being said, I'm out. I will see you guys tomorrow. Remember, we're having interviews the rest of the week until Friday. See you guys tomorrow. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and buy me a coffee, because, you know, every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.